Hello, School Transportation Nation. Tony Corpin here. I want to welcome you to the podcast. It's brought to you by TransFinder, the leader in school bus routing software, by IC Bus, and Student Transportation of America, a leader in school transportation services. A little later, Ms. Taylor Aquitani is going to be speaking with AASA finalist for the Superintendent of the Year, Dr. Frederick Williams, and Transportation Director John Strickland from Dublin City Schools in Georgia. All right, we also got Mr. Ryan Gray with us. Ryan, welcome, sir.
Hello, Tony. Great to be here, as always.
All right, Ryan, I'm going to be diving into the headlines just after our message from our sponsor. Do you remember a time when you could just cherry pick the best solution to run your school transportation operation? The best routing software may be one company. The best parent app could be another company. Those days are over. TransFinder said the old way of doing business doesn't work for today's busy and burdened school transportation departments. They need one partner, one solution. TransFinder has embraced this approach for years now, building award-winning solutions like Route Finder Plus, the driver app Wayfinder, parent app Stop Finder, and inventory management solution Service Finder. They also have field trip management solutions, Trip Finder, and Viewfinder, which provide critical routing information to other stakeholders in the district. Add to this TransFinder's award-winning hardware and industry's best support and service. You have the ingredients that make up one partner, one solution. It's not just a slogan. It's TransFinder's way of doing business. Learn more by emailing getplus@transfinder.com or calling 800-373-3609. That's 800-373-3609. Remember, one partner, one solution. All right, Ryan, hit me with it. EPA final rule, GHG3. What's the breaking news on that?
Yeah, well, as we prepared for this podcast recording, the EPA held a phone call in advance of releasing it last Friday, March 29th. So we did not actually have those details in front of us when we were recording this episode, but we do know that it is out. As you listen to this, you can head over to stnonline.com and read that story. We do know that it is more stringent than the proposed rule on GHG3 that was released a couple years ago that I wrote about. So we will have a link to that as well. We do know, though, that the administration has now closed its clean truck rule. This was the phase 3 of that rule that started about a decade ago or so. And we know that it's looking at not just electric, a lot of clean fuels, especially in terms of hydrogen. Now we know for school bus right now, zero emissions means electric school buses. So certainly the industry is wringing its hands and looking at that. Everyone from the OEMs and the powertrain suppliers all the way down to districts and the different school bus operators or the private contractors. A lot there because, Tony, as we've been talking about for weeks, months, years, we have all these regulations, state laws really pushing zero emissions, and a lot still needs to be figured out with that technology before it works for everybody.
Yeah, I know we discussed heavily really what this impact is going to be, and it's going to be the engine manufacturers, right, Ryan? It becomes that if you're buying a school bus, you're going to be affected, right? These rules, when are they supposed to go into effect, Ryan? What's the timeline?
It's for the 2027 model year.
2027 model.
So it's going right on the heels. So we talked a couple of weeks ago about an article I wrote on the light and light medium duty, or what EP is now calling medium duty vehicle, which is really up to that 14,000 gross vehicle weight rating. So it covers a lot of the type A, but this final rule on GHG3, greenhouse gas emissions, this phase 3, is for medium and really heavy duty trucks, which, of course, the majority of school buses, we're talking type C's, type D's, fall under.
Yeah, and the outcome of that, Ryan, is as we talked about with the other legislation, with the medium duty requiring more stringent engine requirements, that is going to cost more money. And no surprise, the heavy duty market is also going to brace for impact. Now, we've also been through this before, numerous times where NOx and they're looking at reducing, right? Reducing it. And the argument also becomes to go from 0.08 to 0.04, to go from 0.04 to 0.0 whatever, the 0.02 or 0.1, like, what's the environmental gains, right?
Exactly. And I know that the initial, we had a couple phases. So there was a couple of options that were open to engine manufacturers. And one of those was 0.035, and then it would phase down. So we know that propane meets that already. But a big part of the call that we were on was talking about California and the 11 states that follow the CARB regulations there, where we know that propane has really been kind of pushed out, and that's evolving, and I think that there's a lot going on right now in terms of simply CARB, working with the different engine manufacturers to try to find some middle ground, and we've seen, because of some of those conversations, states like Oregon backed off on forcing school districts and different trucking companies and whatnot to meet that regulation as of January 1st of this year. They've pushed it out to January 1st of 2025. And some other states are looking at similar things. But we know that we've talked about it. It's going to take more than simply battery electric to get the job done. And this is the long game that we're playing here. And it's really interesting to me that more and more school districts that I'm talking to are buying more diesel right now. And we've had these articles. Would some of these regulations spell the end to diesel? Well, certainly no, because that's the only option some of these folks have. We know right now we're waiting on Cummins to make available its propane version on its fuel agnostic engine. Heard some discussions that's been pushed out a little bit. We were looking at around 2026 to see that. We were thinking next year we were going to see the gasoline version of that, and that's a little bit now in doubt. So where does that leave some traditional propane buyers? I spoke with a district the other day that has really bought into propane, and they have a very large fleet. And the fleet manager was basically telling me they had just purchased a whole new, I think, a dozen or more diesel buses, and they had been done. They weren't going to buy any more diesel. But because of the limitations they had in going to propane, and their preferred vendor is not offering propane currently. And, we've talked to Tony about how much does the dealer drive a lot of those decisions. And in this district's case, it does. So they've actually gone to buying some diesel. And again, their hope is that will get them over the hump. And then as we get a little bit further down the road, there'll be a little bit more clarity to them. And then they can start buying propane again. They've also brought in electric and actually are having really good experiences so far, as the fleet manager told me, knock on wood. But, again, this is all evolving, and certainly this latest final rule from the feds indicates, at least here as we are in an election year, as of today, the current administration continues to really push this green plan, and there are certainly a lot of folks that are fighting it. And we'll just have to see what the election does in November. Will that have any impact? Some say yes, some say no. It kind of depends on which side of the fence you come down on in terms of zero emissions. But a lot still to be figured out for school districts.
Yeah, and again, like we talked last week, you definitely see the cost of engines going up, driving the vehicle costs up.
Yeah.
And we saw when there were the other phases in previous years, I believe 2010, we saw a really big pre-purchase before the rules changed because there was a significant cost jump in the engines. Now we're also going to be dealing with supply, right? Because Cummins has said that they're going to throttle back supply as well, driving the cost up because of scarcity. So now comes another element to keep the prices even higher.
Exactly.
So what kind of jump are we going to see, Ryan? I mean, I don't know. People are going to probably speculate, right?
Yeah, it's all speculative right now. Again, we really need to tear into this final rule. And one of the questions I had for EPA, and I raised my hand virtually, and they decided to go with like the AP and Politico and some of the big media. I don't know why, but
don't be disgruntled. Don't be disgruntled.
I'm
Ryan,
not
seriously.
disgruntled.
No love for STN.
They did mention several times. Several of the speakers, including Administrator Regan, mentioned the Clean School Bus program and school buses. But one of my questions is cost. And we've been hearing for about 6-8 years, a lot of the forecasters and the technologists have said, oh, hey, electric vehicles are coming. The prices are coming down. It's like, by the day, batteries are getting cheaper and cheaper. And then what happened? COVID and the supply chain, which a lot of it impacted by COVID, but not all of it. And what have we seen? We've seen these prices skyrocket. And, I did an interview last spring with John O'Leary, the CEO of Daimler, parent company of Thomas Built Buses. I asked him that question. I said, with the supply chain, and at the time, the supply chain was still more of an issue, and there was some forecasts about it, about the belt loosening and products becoming a little bit more free flowing, bringing down costs. I said, oh, so is school buses are electric or whatever internal combustion, are that's going to come down now? And not so much. He told me, prices once they go up don't magically just come down. You can kind of read between the lines on that one, but he did mention, hey, labor has gotten more expensive. Transportation costs have gotten more expensive. Of course, at the time we were still looking at, and we still have very high fuel prices. Let's not lie. And it kind of has been on an elevator and fluctuating. But we were a lot more in the throes of the Ukraine-Russian war, and now that's continuing to be ongoing, and there's other pressures. But all of these things build up. And he was telling me, hey, it's not just simply the OEMs wanting to increase the prices. We're having to pass along to the customers, and our margins are not what many people think they are. So on this call, they talked about the Inflation Reduction Act and different funding mechanisms at the federal level to instill this historic funding towards clean air and clean emissions. But my question is, what specifically is being done with or for some of the manufacturers, whether they be vehicle, engine, or both, to help them bring the prices down? Is that possible? Because again, when we're looking at in the face of all these regulations and state laws that are mandating this zero emissions path, something's got to give. And we know that we're essentially halfway through the current EPA clean school bus cycle, the $5 billion over 5 years. I don't believe there's much appetite from what I've heard in DC to have another big, huge funding pot to share. And of course, we are in an election year. Donald Trump is again going to be the Republican candidate going against the incumbent President Biden. So a lot will be shaken out on that front. But it leaves districts and school bus operators with a lot of questions going forward. Here we are, coming about a third, almost of the way, a quarter at least of the way through 2024. And a lot of these regulations and laws are staring folks in the face. 2027, that's when these GHG phase 3 rules go into effect for model year 2027. And of course, we know New York, that's when districts there need to start making new purchases of zero emissions or battery electric school buses.
Yeah, Ryan, lots to think about there. All right, guys, before we get some more headlines, we have a quick message from our sponsor. This message is brought to you by Student Transportation of America, a leader in school transportation services. STA operates more than 22,000 vehicles throughout the U.S. and Canada, delivering safe and reliable transportation and fleet services to school districts of all sizes. STA is committed to moving the industry toward a greener future and positively impacting the health of passengers and the planet through their use of electric vehicles, alternative fuels, and other green fleet initiatives. To learn how STA may be able to help your district, visit ridesta.com. That's ridesta.com. All right, Ryan, I know you had a quick update for us on the crash in Texas and Austin, just outside at Hayes ISD. And we know the director there, Fili Bonilla, and, definitely it's heavy whenever you have an accident, a rollover, a bus full of kids coming back from a field trip that's struck by another vehicle. And, by reports, there were no seatbelts on this bus. And I know in Texas, it's a requirement to have seatbelts after a certain, period. What was it, 2018?
Yeah, well, 2017, 2018. I believe the law actually says 2018. I know. So it's Hayes Consolidated Independent School District there in the outskirts of the Austin area. Big booming area out there in Texas. And you're absolutely right. There were no seatbelts. Now, an important aspect of this is these were pre-K students. So on one hand, seatbelts, protecting larger students or even, first, second graders is one thing, but we're talking about pre-K. And what's not been, picked up yet anyways, if it will be by the national media that we are finally in tune to, is child safety restraint systems. And we know that the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration recommends that all pre-K students, preschoolers from birth all the way up through age 5, essentially, are in appropriate child safety restraint systems. For the infants up till about, 2-3 years old, it's rear facing. Then it takes on forward facing. So that can be forward facing car seats. It can be add-ons, the integrated child safety seats that we see built into school bus bench seats, a lot of which also have the regular lap shoulder belt systems. These buses did not have them. And from what I learned from the school district, they have a fleet of about 109 school buses. There was only, I believe it was 11 school buses remaining that had yet to have any restraint systems in it. This was one of them. Now, this was a field trip coming back from the zoo. From what I've heard, it was a great day. I mean, it's springtime out there in central Texas. The kids are coming, toward the end of their school year. They went to the Bastrop Zoo there in Bastrop, Texas, and they were coming home. It happened just before 2 p.m. Central Time, and a cement truck apparently head-on collision. And in addition to the head-on collision, the bus rolled over. And talking with our certified child passenger safety technicians, they point out that when you're talking about school bus compartmentalization and in the front and rear impacts, and that's what the National Transportation Safety Board, in investigating all these different school bus crashes over the years, has said, hey, that compartmentalization is effective really only in most frontal and rear impact crashes. But the caveat to that is that's for students who are older in elementary years. Not for pre-K. They're too light. They can fly out of the seat compartment. Then you add the rollover aspect where NTSB says compartmentalization fails over and over again because there's nothing keeping the kids in that seating compartment and they fly out. So there was a couple of issues here to delve into. And it's important to note that Indiana is the only state that requires this and requires training on this. the best practice is if you go to our National Specifications and Procedures Manual, you attend the NHTSA 8-hour child passenger safety on school buses training that we provide in STN Expo Reno and in TSD. That's the recommendation. And I think a lot of operations do follow that. But as we know, Tony, time and time again, if a state doesn't require something, sometimes school districts, don't, or at least not often enough, do they implement that. So I think that's something here that's at play. And it's not just Texas, and Texas does not have a requirement for this. So certainly it's another tragic example of the importance of training, of hands-on training, of implementation of some of these solutions. It costs money, but certainly much cheaper than losing the life of a young boy like Ulysses Rodriguez Montoya, who is the child who died in that crash. There was actually another fatality, a motorist in a following vehicle not tied to the field trip, died in the crash as well. It'll be interesting to see if NTSB picks that up. So another thing, Tony, is this is the fourth pre-K death in a matter of about a week and a half. So we had that horrific fire in Illinois on March 11th, where 3 pre-K kids perished. 2 were a brother and sister, and the bus driver and the driver of the other vehicle. Now we have, young Ulysses, his life taken way, way too soon. So, I know that there's a lot of emotional wounds there in Texas and across the industry. We never want to see a kid hurt, much less killed, and especially a young little one like Ulysses. So head over to stnonline.com. I have the latest on that article. And certainly as we learn more, I know that there's going to be a push for NTSB. They're investigating that Illinois crash. I think it's coming down to likely a scenario of having the resources to do both. But this certainly seems like something that should be studied as well. And as we learn more, we'll certainly share it with you.
Yeah, thanks for that update, Ryan. Definitely our hearts go out to the folks at Hayes Consolidated for that situation. It's traumatic to the community. It's traumatic to the transportation department. And definitely you're having to repiece everything, pull the camera footage, go back, get all the information from your routing teams, notify the parents. Just what are the implications and fallout from that? So definitely lessons to be learned, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And you bring up a good point. The investigation, crash investigations, we're actually having Dick Fisher and Reno have a special one-day seminar on that on July 12th. But not enough is talked about in terms of that trauma, where you have administrators who have to comb through the footage and watch this over and over and over again to find out what happened and to document everything. That takes a toll beyond just simply it happening to your students, it happening to your driver, going out there on scene and seeing the aftermath, but then watching the video of it. Just horrific stuff. And not enough is talked about in terms of that aspect. And I know like in most of these or in all of these incidences, there are plenty of counseling that's available to the employees and parents and students there at Hayes CISD. But certainly something that we as an industry need to continue to talk about and focus on. And literally, folks, this just in as we're wrapping up recording, I mean, within a matter of minutes of Tony and I talking about this Texas crash, the local media in the Austin, Texas area is reporting that the driver of the concrete truck admitted to consuming cocaine early morning hours before the crash on March 22nd. Just this story continues to have turns and twists in it. We've updated the article. There's a link to this court document that's been obtained by CBS Austin. Certainly we'll continue to follow this news. but just a tragedy that really could have and should have been avoided. This commercial truck driver, his name is Jerry Hernandez. He refused a voluntary blood specimen, but there's apparently body cam of him telling a state trooper, admitting to smoking marijuana at 10 p.m. the previous night. Then it looks like he took about an hour and a half nap, woke up at 12:30 a.m. By 1 a.m., he took cocaine and he went to work. And then within 12, 13 hours of that, he hit the school bus and caused the crash. And there's actually dash cam video out now that shows it's pointing out of the school bus facing the road, and it shows approaching the concrete truck. The concrete truck starts to veer across the center line, and the troopers at the time referred to it as a near head-on collision. And yes, it struck kind of a glancing blow, it looks like, the front right area of the school bus. And then you see the school bus tip over. And obviously, Ulysses Rodriguez Montoya died in that crash, as did another motorist. Sad things all the way around. Stay tuned to stnonline.com for all the latest.
Yeah, it's definitely more to this story. I'm sure as it comes out, we'll keep reporting on it. stnonline.com for the latest updates, information you need, analysis on everything happening in the school transportation industry. Again, Ryan mentioned it. STN Expo, lots of sessions covering safety and breaking down what do you do in these situations. STN Expo is this summer. Indianapolis, we got May 31st through June 4th, as well as STN Expo in Reno, Nevada, July 12th through the 17th. Go to stnexpo.com, lock in our early bird and super early bird rates to save on your main conference registration. So don't forget to do that. All right, we're going to get to our interview with Miss Taylor Ekbatani. But before we do, we got a message from our sponsor. Today's tech tip is brought to you by IC Bus. Looking for ways to improve your on-time performance and reduce operating costs? All IC Bus CE Series school buses come standard with a factory-installed telematics device, including a 5-year connectivity subscription. You'll gain access to on-command connection, an industry-leading remote diagnostic solution, providing data that is visible, easy to understand, and actionable. With OCC, your school district will have visibility to vehicle health and performance data at your fingertips, including EV-specific information like state of charge and estimated range. Learn about other standard capabilities of their connected vehicles at icbus.com. That's icbus.com.
Good morning, nation. Taylor Ekbatani here. We are wrapping up the AASA Superintendent of the Year finalists. So I hope you guys have been following along for the last month. And last but not least, joining us on the podcast this week, we have Superintendent Dr. Frederick Williams of Dublin City Schools in Georgia, and Transportation Director John Strickland. So welcome to the podcast, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
You guys can't see, but Dr. Williams is rocking a green suit right now. Looks very great.
Yeah, this is Dublin, Georgia, and we're green and we're growing.
Okay, I like it.
All things Irish.
Yeah.
It's St. Patrick's Day month, so it still works.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, we celebrate a month-long activities here in our city, from arts festival to parades to pancake suppers with the entire community. And yesterday we had an arts festival with some of our special needs students across our community. So it's a lot of great things that go on that touch a lot of lives and bring us together as a community.
That's awesome. So, Dr. Williams, I know you were in San Diego for the AASA National Conference on Education, but what did it mean to you and your district to not only be selected as a state superintendent of the year, but then as one of the 4 finalists?
It was really humbling from the standpoint that you always realize that you're the face of the school system, and when things go well, you have to accept that. And when things don't go as planned, sometimes you have to accept being the face as well. But you reflect back on the effort of students, staff, parents, and community members coming together, centered around the whole child. And you get to be the face of that. You get to be the one that is on stage, but you also understand that no man is an island, that it takes all of us. And so it's very humbling, but rewarding at the same time.
That's very special and very much deserved. I was actually doing some research, and I want to say over the past 6 years, 5 of the years, a Georgia superintendent has been selected as a finalist.
I think that's correct. We have some tremendous superintendents in the state of Georgia. I know Norris Price, I know Trent North, and Colonel Jones, and several others. Mike from Pike County, and several others who have been selected as national finalists, and some have actually captured that title. And it just speaks to the work that is going on in our state. And we are a close knit bunch. We do a lot of collaborations, and all of those are peers, colleagues, and friends. And so it's just exciting to see the educational efforts in public school in Georgia being recognized on the national stage.
So you guys, you're all close then. You guys all talk. You're drinking the same water, obviously, if you're all doing great things.
Yeah. And so, but the uniqueness is some have greater than 40,000 students, and here we are with 2,400. And so in Georgia, the complexities of educating is different because you have the rural, urban, and suburban school district. And so the beauty of those finalists is all of us come from different contexts. Yet we have the same, we're striving toward that same common student-focused goal. That's high achievement and success for all students. And so that's the beauty about it. And so it's just refreshing to be able to see Georgia recognized in such a great light with so many finalists.
We'll see if the trend keeps going.
Yes, ma'am.
So I actually kind of want to talk about your guys' relationship really quick before we jump into Dublin City Schools, because you guys actually have a pretty unique, I think, position. You've known each other for the past 30 years, getting to know each other as a football coach for Dublin City Schools. Is that right?
That's correct.
Correct.
We both coach for the Fighting Irish football team here at Dublin High School. And we learned a lot of different lessons along the way about leadership and also about how to motivate and accelerate young people, not just on the field and the courts, but in life. And we also have a common background in football, but then there are some differences with Mr. Strickland being a baseball coach, successful state championship playoff appearances, and also in basketball, and me with weightlifting and track and other things. And so, but the common denominator for us was football, where we were able to shape and mold the life of young men.
Can you talk about, your career path through Dublin City Schools, because you both took different directions, but how has your kind of relationship stayed the same or progressed over the 30 years as well?
Well, we both started out in health and physical education. He was at Saxon Elementary. I was at Susie Dasher. And the commonality there, he ended up becoming the principal of Saxon Elementary. I became the principal of Susie Dasher. And so both of us served in the roles of assistant principal at the elementary level. I also had a stint at the middle school level. And then I became a middle school principal. And then I became an associate superintendent. And Mr. Strickland and I have always had a close relationship and friendship. And when we called ourselves has-been coaches, after we progressed in the administrative side of education, we still had that itch. And so his son and my son played on the same recreation football team.
Right.
I'm an offensive guy and he's a defensive guy. But when we were coaching that team, he was calling the offensive plays and I was calling the defensive plays. And so but we have our families are close, our kids are close, and his son through my son's first touchdown pass as a Fighting Irish. And I'll never forget that moment. And so we just have a lot of common things, and then and then some things that are a little bit different than other sports that we coach.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a really special bond.
And it's crazy in the fact that I got to go back and brag on him because, like I said, he's been our lead learner. He'd tell you that. So he goes by lead learner around here because he's always learning and he's never going to sit there. And like he said, he's humble about everything. that's the truth, because he's not going to tell you he knows everything. He asks and wants folks to tell him. What makes him a great leader is he wants people around him that, just as smarter, so, he can listen and he makes sure everything goes well. I mean, he's the top, they say servant leader, he holds the pyramid at the bottom and everything else is on top. And he makes sure that folks get what they need and that kind of thing. And he walked into a situation that was just unheard of. I mean, we were in a bad way. And one of the hardest decisions had to be made is the school I was at, Saxon, where he was talking about. It was 115 years old. Now, not that school. It burned down once before, but it was in a community that's just loved that school. And we had to make a decision. We're gonna drop the lot, or we're gonna continue to move on. And we had to shut that school down. And I was the principal that time, and he came to me, and I totally understood. I mean, we knew exactly where we were and where we stood, and he caught a lot of heat over that. And like I said, we had hearings and all that, and I made sure to be there, and backed it up 110% because we were the smallest number at that time. And really, there was we could go to other directions, and it was tough. But in the beginning, he had a lot of folks firing at him, And so I got to play. What is that? What's the president have? He's got all those Secret Service. I got to be Secret Service, And I'm kind of like, I'm kind of the loud one. He can get loud when he needs to. Now, when he gets going, now you got to watch out, boy. You start clapping and standing up and singing and throwing up the towel and having a good time. But, I'm kind of the one that if there's got to be a fight, I'm the one that'll go in the middle of the fight and go right off. Matter of fact, I usually start it a lot of times, so that's the worst part about me. But we've been fortunate. Like I said, he said, we came in close to the same time, and we've done some of the same things. I mean, we basically became principals almost the same year. I went to Moore Street. Now, what's funny about Moore Street, that's where I'm at today, just sitting over here, because I got a small cubby space in my old school. But my dad went to school here when it first opened, and I went to school here growing up along with my sister. And then I was here when we shut it down and made it an alternative school. And then we went to 3 elementary schools. So we've done a lot of things right. And like I said, I was assistant principal at the middle school. He started as an assistant principal at the middle school. So, I mean, we've been connected to hip for a long, long, long time. And it really, the only reason I got into transportation, he brought me in and said, look, I need help over there. We got some issues over there. I need somebody to go help me fix it. And, I looked at it as another opportunity, to put on a resume. And then on top of that, just to see, it's another challenge. And luckily, we've been able to handle some things. Now, I retired, and then I let him twist my arm and come back to do it. So that's a whole nother story. And so we're trying to do some things again. But I love him to death. Like I said, we've been close for years, and our families have known each other for years. And Robert and Fred played together. He's got 2 good girls that either I taught or he taught, and it's just been a great relationship over time. And like I said, I'm glad that I can be in this position to help him, because I mean I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know why he hadn't been in this level that he's at now with the Georgia job. I mean, he was up for it the year before and should have been up for a few more years, because I mean he's worked his tail off here for Dublin City.
That's awesome.
Don't tell nobody. He gets all excited about it.
Do you guys think your relationship has helped in your current positions? You can call each other up and say, hey, buses are looking rough today. I don't think we can roll.
I sent him an email yesterday to look at. What you talking about? he can just buy an email or text from me any day.
Yeah. And I think one thing about Mr. Strickland, both of us were also defense coordinator for the Fighting Irish at one stint. And I tell you this, being a football coach has really helped us coach academics, but also be problem solvers. Because as a football coach, you have a 5-yard buffer on that sideline. Your accountability is in the end zone. All you got to do is look up there and see how well you're doing. And then if you look across the field, you see some down and distance markers. So every play, the crowd is going to either cheer for you or boo you.
That's right.
And so shying away from accountability is nothing new, and making the tough calls and making decisions is nothing new. But Mr. Strickland is also a planner, a well-organized person. And so those same skill sets, being able to transfer that to the transportation department. Not only that, but the relationship piece that Mr. Strickland has exhibited throughout his tenure here with students, with families, with the community is unprecedented. And the bus drivers just absolutely love Mr. Strickland because he knows how to connect with them right where they are, to celebrate them, to laugh with them, to cry with them when it's time to cry when someone's transitioned out of this world. And so he has an uncanny ability to bring a smile on your face and a laugh and be able to meet people right where they are, regardless of socioeconomic status or any other situation. Mr. Strickland does a tremendous job with connecting with people and really is an advocate for the least, the lost, and the left out. And so that's what I really appreciate his heart. And he can stand in the middle of his shoes when he needs to do that as well. But a tremendous person, a tremendous motivator that keeps our bus going.
I love that. And I know that John mentioned it, but Dr. Williams, when you took over as superintendent in 2015, the district was kind of in a rough place financially, and you kind of pulled it out of that hole.
So I appreciate your kindness. It wasn't kind of. Let me explain what happened. When I became superintendent, the ends were not meeting. The ends were not even waving at each other. The ends were not even playing peekaboo. They were playing hide and go seek. And we were in a rough place, over $7 million deficit, over $13 million bond debt. We don't have that now. And we had to make the tough decisions, working with the data that we had and really coming up, again, that coaching background. You have your critics, but on that sideline, guess what? They were always there.
That's right.
We could not escape one play, offensive, defensive, special team, without the crowd cheering or booing. And so this was not unfamiliar territory in making the tough decisions and the right decisions to help the whole. And so again, just like in what we learned on the field, there's no I in team, but there's an I in the word win. And so when you want to win, you got to have the right individuals, that I. And so there's no individual on team. We need teamwork, effort, and mutual respect, that word team, but also an accountability, but also we need some eyes in that word win. And so having the right individuals in the right seat, and I just want to say it this way, on the bus, to be able to make those decisions that are student-focused decisions, and that are sometimes tough decisions. We had to make those, again, to overcome that financial deficit, and we did it collectively. And that's what humbles me about this award of a finalist is I know the story. I know the real nights of then in tears and for me in prayer concerning our school system and where we come from. I know the journey that it took. And so when you're on that stage on a national level, you say, you know what? Somebody else noticed our students. Somebody else noticed our staff. Somebody else noticed that we really did a good job in some areas. And so, but we're excited. And then at the same time, with that $7 million deficit, our graduation rate was 70%. And now it's 97.7%. And so, hey, we, as a system, as a community, we have done a tremendous job. And so being recognized among your peers around the state for the job that you've done, and then again on the national stage is humbling, but it's also rewarding because you know the story. Each of those finalists have a story. And so we're just thankful for this opportunity to be recognized.
Yeah, John, if you want to jump in and kind of talk about the transportation operations a little bit and what that looks like.
Well, we're at a point. We just went through state inspections the last 2 days. And, one thing we try to pride ourselves on is to have our mechanic, Kelvin Harris, and his assistant, Hunter Beasley, try to get, we look at our grade as well, based on what we have to pull off the road or this or that. And we actually had one bus that got a flat tire in the middle of a inner tire in the middle of a route yesterday morning. So it failed inspection. But all we had to do was correct that because they were coming back to finish today, and we got that corrected. And then we have one other bus that has a situation, but we only had 2 buses out of 31 that had an issue. Everything else is A-OK. So we're basically going to grade that as a 94. And we look to, everything about us is accountability in what we do. And we had a really bad bus accident about 2019, March the 21st, because I can tell you the day and the time and everything since that happened. But it changed our whole perspective on busing. I mean, we had to make sure we were getting the right safety things that were on our bus that are offered now. We're right about 30 routes during the day. We're a small school, but then we run a few special routes here and there that might be for daycares or this or that. So, it's a process. We've lost a couple of our older drivers to shoulder issues or knee replacements. And the hardest thing, is juggling the drivers that we have. And it's like Doc said, one of the things that I guess that's kind of helped me when I got over to transportation is I've always had my CDL. I kept my CDL. And even as a principal, I drive my field trips, so I didn't have to pay for, a driver or anything like that, just because I'm a cheapskate old accountant like my dad. But the thing is that keeping my license like that when I came over, I drive. If somebody's out, I'm gonna get on a bus. I mean, it's just the thing to do. Right now, I'm driving every day. Matter of fact, another former director, he and I both are back helping, both retired. I mean, he's driving around every day. I mean, and I think when they see you do, what they're doing and respect what they're doing, I think that's played a lot in the fact that I have had a little success just developing the folks, because now we have a lot of servants now. I mean, hey, if you need somebody to drive an extra route, let me know. I can do it. We can work it out. And I usually, like I said, the biggest thing I tell everybody too is I just believe in, if I'm going to ask somebody to drive a double and triple route, I better be driving a double, triple route that day too. And so, that's just kind of how we've been able to roll, and we've had a lot of success. I mean, we're in our struggles. Trust me. I mean, it's like tomorrow is the day before spring break. We just happen to have several athletic events. We've got a field day going on tomorrow. Plus, we had some folks that had planned on leave before we even got this far. So, it's a constant grind, and everybody has a shortage of drivers. But the one good thing, it's like I tell all my coaches, if they'll get their CDL to help us out, I said, look, if you can help us out by driving your teams, I'll have you a bus. Because, I mean, we have buses ready to go, and we got a great, like I said, mechanic staff. And like I said, we'll call Doc and his staff up there and say, hey, what can y'all do to help us? And I mean, the first thing we did not too long ago is we raised our rates. We raised our bus driving salaries, and because we were at the bottom of our little Heart of Georgia RESA, now we're at the top. And we actually have a scale that's it's similar to a teacher scale. And so, might be the first 5 years, every year you're getting a raise. Then we put 2 years together and it keeps bouncing. And that's helped a lot with just, showing the bus drivers, hey, we appreciate what you do. We want to try to help you. We're included. We do this little thing, and we save a little bit of money out of the salary. And right as we come back after Christmas, Doc and his staff, they said, hey, we're gonna give you what's called lucky loot. Okay, we were gonna basically give you a check in January right after Christmas that we're holding back out of your salary, and we're going to give you that. And they include the bus drivers, they include the monitors. It's crazy. We got a lot of teachers. We have a lot of coaches, parapros, even custodians that have tried to help us by driving routes, and subbing when they can. So, I mean, it's just one big teamwork, just like he talked about the whole time. It's just, Dublin City is about family. And we call it the Dublin Way, and everybody jumps on the Dublin Way and chips in the best they can. And I think that's attributed to Doc and what things he's put out in front of everything. And we've got our strategy map that we follow, and everything that we do in those maps with those goals and with the sub goals underneath. You can tie. It's like he says, if it doesn't tie to one of these, we don't need to do it. because this is what makes us roll. And as a matter of fact, like I told somebody, I said, you need to look at your program because I can take my bus program and I can tie into every one of those. And it's just all how you make it happen. And with his leadership and guidance, we've been fortunate to be able to do that.
And one thing I want to add on that too, what we've done also is we've $2,000 stipend for coaches who have a CDL, and that way we don't have to take from our bus drivers, day staff, for them to run athletic trips. And so if you have your CDL, we give you a $2,000 stipend. Also for all employees of Dublin City Schools, what we've done is those who are in the childbearing ages, we offer free daycare.
Yeah.
And so our high school students who are in the teaching as a profession, we have certified staff in there, and our high school students rotate in and they do their practicums for teaching as a profession as we're growing our own. But we also have certified staff. We have infants on up to just before pre-K age. And then we also, last year, for those who are have maxed out on the salary schedule, we offer a $500 a year bonus. So every year beyond 21 years, you get $500 added to your salary. And so what we did is we try to take care of those who are in the childbearing, our young teachers, and any employee, classified bus driver, whoever, with free daycare. And then also on the other end, the stipends for longevity, and we call them longevity bonuses.
I love that. And it sounds like bus drivers are included in the overall district plan, which is not something you necessarily hear all the time.
And so every time, like the state might give a raise for teachers, and every salary schedule we have is tied to the teacher salary schedule. And so if the governor gives a $1,000 raise and he might not give it for bus drivers, it automatically calculates what the district is going to do for bus driver and every other classified employee, because we value all of our employees. And so, that's something that we, don't take lightly. And that's something I applaud Mr. Strickland on. We don't wait for a bus driver appreciation month. They're celebrated throughout the year. We might have fish fries or breakfast or whatever. I might come over, we might have a cookout, at the bus shop. And so we're constantly trying to look out for our bus drivers throughout the year.
Yeah, that's important.
Right.
And it keeps bus drivers in their seats. It, promotes a great culture.
It does. And we have some bus drivers who've been driving for a mighty long time.
Yeah.
And some of them, their physical health has, caused them not to be able to continue, but we still try to bring them back when we're having stuff at the bus shop too, because we're just one big family.
Yeah.
And, it's just, again, exciting and refreshing to see them. And I'm thinking about one bus driver I call cheerleader. I remember when my daughter was playing volleyball, and we would be down in Savannah, Georgia, which is a couple hours away, and we wouldn't have that many fans. But cheerleader, the bus driver, would be in there. She would have our whole side locked down because she was like her own side of the gym cheering for the kids, and the kids love Miss Karen. And then we also have another young lady that decorates her bus for anything that's going on. Christmas, it doesn't matter if
it's set up for Easter right now.
Easter, yeah. Halloween. And so, and then she'll have pictures of the kids all over the bus. And she's coming to the events that are after school that she doesn't have to the games to celebrate the kids. If a kid that rides her bus is doing anything from arts or whatever, she's right there cheering them on. And so it's just amazing the type of people that we have, because the first people that they see and the last people that they see before they go home, and just the love that they have for our students. I'm just appreciative of it.
Well, tell you about Karen real quick. This funny story, since you brought that up. The referee at the region basketball tournament went to the coach and said, "You're going to have to move that lady behind the bench because she's fitting to cost y'all a technical." And sure enough, they told her, they moved her to the top. Boy, she was hot. And then you talk about the other lady that dresses up her bus, Ms. Lorraine Ward, and what she does. She came from Florida. And she looked all around, and we missed her somewhere she left an application and we missed it, but she still didn't sign with anybody. And she came back and I said, look, I'll hire you tomorrow. All you got to do is we got to get it. I brought the application. I said, well, we didn't see it. Here's another one. Fill it out. I'll get you through the board tomorrow. But we just recently hired a lady who's from the largest school system in Missouri, out of Springfield. She moved to Cochran, which is about 30 minutes away. And there's 4 school systems around there she could have gone to. And she came and she chose to come to us. And she's been doing a great job. And we've got another lady who came and visited from Fort Smith, Arkansas this past March 18th. I happened to be going over for granddaddy possibilities because the baby was supposed to be born. But my other guy got to talk to her and she was really excited. And she was more excited about the pay because they don't get paid anything like that out there. And we were the highest around. And she's actually going to live in Eastman, which is 30 miles away. But she's considering coming to us. And I feel like the things that that's been approved up there that we've been able to offer has really helped us. And people that are moving in that have been doing this for years on end in other states and other places are considering us now. And we're pretty lucky in that aspect.
And we also have the big green reading machine.
Yeah, we do.
It's a charter bus that we actually purchased from a church, and we outfitted it so that we can roll that into neighborhoods. We have a lot of transportation deserts in our system where kids don't have rides, and they rely on the school bus. So we actually do literacy, parent involvement, other activities. We use it to pass out books. We ride it within all of our parades. And so, but the big green reading machine is one of our buses that we are extremely proud of, that we're able to take educational opportunities for students as well as parents right where they are in their neighborhoods.
And we were feeding probably almost the entire school system during COVID. I mean, all of our buses were running with ladies from the cafeteria and monitors and my drivers, and we had several different scheduled, and we were going all over the place in our little town, and even hit some areas in the county where we were going and serving meals at a time. And there was several opportunities where the big green machine followed. And so those kids could come, and while parents were coming over getting the food with the kids, they could go over to the bus and they could sit down and read. And at that time, we still had computers in that bus where we would get on that bus and we could do some actually hands-on stuff as well. But it's strictly a reading machine now. We just get them on there and read.
That's awesome. You guys sound like you have it all figured out there in Dublin City.
We still got a ways.
I don't know about it all figured out, but we're working hard at it.
Well, I really appreciate you guys jumping on the podcast. I could sit here and talk to you about everything that you guys are doing for hours, and your passion is amazing. It's, undeniable. So I can feel it, and I know our listeners will be able to feel it. But thank you guys so much for jumping on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. Now, I will give you one more thing to leave off of. I always like to boost our sales, so to speak. Now, we do have some videos out there, some bus videos.
Oh, yeah.
We've got one that's Old Town Dublin Road, and it's me on a bus singing a good song. Yeah. And then I've got some of my drivers, and we did that one to Double Dutch bus, but we call it the Dublin City bus.
Yeah,
we got some videos out there.
John Strickland takes all of these songs that are out there, and he'll redo them with his bus drivers and him, and they would go viral. And the kids and the parents and the community, they love it. So the Old Town Road, and instead of the Double Dutch bus, it's the Dublin City bus. You need to check those out.
You got to send them. We'll put them on socials.
The Dublin Old Town Road song. We're up now because we'll pop it on there every now and then. We did this. This was right before I retired. It was like 2017, maybe 18, and we've got 190 something thousand views just on our Facebook page. We didn't get out YouTube, so that's where we messed up. But it's on YouTube now. But our Facebook page, and then we had 37 states have shared it.
Wow.
We've had 5 provinces in Canada that shared it. One of our former basketball players lives in Israel. He played there and stayed there. He shared it over there. It's been shared in England and Australia. So we went crazy with that one.
I think that's called viral. I think you guys may have gone viral.
We're thinking about a little Vanilla Ice with Bus Bus Baby. That may be next.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, you'll have to send them over, and we'll get them on socials, or share them for some way.
I like it. We'll do that.
We will do that.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much again. Have a great rest of your afternoon, and congrats to Dublin City Schools and to you, Dr. Williams.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yes, sir. He's deserving.
A special thanks to Mr. Ryan Gray, Taylor Ekbatani, Dr. Williams, and Mr. John Strickland. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast today. We appreciate your insights, your thoughts. Special thanks to our sponsors as well, TransFinder, Student Transportation of America, and IC Bus. Don't forget, guys, visit stnonline.com for all the latest news and analysis on the school transportation industry. Also, you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to Pods Nation. We got to get all the episodes. Listen to them. If you haven't heard them, go back in our catalog. We got hundreds and hundreds of episodes of great school transportation content for you to enjoy. Nation, we love you. We'll see you next week.